All right, welcome everyone. I am going to share my screen before we get started. All right, here we go. So I have an 11-year-old client whose name is Haley. She's from a family of Anglo-American descent and currently identifies as a heterosexual female. Her family is spiritual, but does not list a specified religion. The family speaks English as their primary language. The patient is, she's living in a single family household as parents are divorced, living separate and apart. Haley resides with her mother and sees her father on weekends. The patient appears to be in the role of a parentified child, as evidenced by mother not being present for much of the day. There are no previously mentioned cultural practices or rituals according to the intake. As mentioned earlier, the parent is living in a single parent household and no siblings. The presenting concerns and specific problems. Haley's mood has changed substantially at school recently, going from appearing happy and enthusiastic to appearing depressed, tired, and uninterested. Haley has displayed a noticeable weight loss, causing her teachers to be concerned. When a teacher asked Haley how things were going, she began to cry and said that her mother was drinking a lot and staying away from home as well, too. Haley visits her dad every other weekend. He has recently become engaged to be married to a woman, and they are expecting a baby. Her mood has changed substantially, as mentioned earlier, at school, going from appearing happy and enthusiastic to appearing depressed, tired, and uninterested. As mentioned, Haley is displaying a noticeable weight loss, causing her teachers to really be concerned. When a teacher asked Haley how things were going, she began to cry and said that her mother was drinking a lot and staying away from home. But the new wrinkle here is that scratches on Haley's wrist indicate a possible history of cutting. So the back history and stressors, current development, and ecological. Maternal neglect and substance abuse. Celia's heavy drinking, Haley's mother, and Haley began leaving Haley unsupervised to create an unsafe, unpredictable, and emotionally barren home environment. This neglect is a direct threat to Haley's physical and emotional well-being. Emotional abandonment by father. Ernesto, Haley's father, news of a new family coupled with his apparent lack of responsiveness to Haley's distress signifies a form of emotional abandonment, exacerbating her feelings of sadness and displacement. Unprotected abuse by Michael, the mother's boyfriend. This is the most critical and dangerous stressor. The ongoing abuse by Michael, unrecognized by Haley's mother, is likely the root cause of Haley's severe depression, weight loss, and frequent illnesses. Misguided protection through medical system. Celia's constant taking Haley to clinics while seemingly acting in protection is actually a manifestation of her own distorted reality and misuse of medical resources. It prevents Haley from being in a stable home environment and does not address the underlying issues. It also drains resources and could potentially lead to further medicalization of Haley's emotional distress. Lack of safe spaces and consistency. With both parents and even neighbors being inconsistent or stressful, Haley lacks a fundamental sense of security and belonging in her primary living environment. Now, her strengths and protective factors are signs of resilience. Most definitely school personnel. Crucially, Haley's positive relationships are with school personnel. This is a vital protective factor. The school is likely the only place Haley experiences stability, routine, and adult figures who are genuinely concerned about her well-being. This recognition of her depression and weight loss indicates that they are attuned to her needs, which is a critical first step towards intervention. This connection is likely a lifeline for Haley. Child Protective Services involvement. Due to the severe neglect, potential medical neglect, like unnecessary medical visits and addressing the actual abuse and the ongoing abuse by Michael, A report to CPS is absolutely necessary. The school, being Hallie's only positive connection and having observed her symptoms, is likely a mandatory reporter. Therapeutic support for Hallie. Individual therapy focuses on trauma-informed care, which is critical for Hallie to process the abuse, neglect, and emotional distress. Safety planning. A safety plan needs to be developed for Hallie, potentially including temporary placement if her home environment cannot be made safe. Support for Hallie. While holding Hallie accountable for her while holding Celia, Hallie's mother, accountable for her neglect, there is also the need to assess her own mental health and potential for a substantial abuse treatment. Her fear of Ernesto and her inability to recognize Michael as the abuser suggest significant psychological distress. Family therapy, when appropriate in this case, once safety is established and if appropriate, family therapy could be considered, especially to address the dynamics between Hallie, Celia, and Ernesto, though this would be complex due to the abuse. Interfering factors or barriers. Well, let's start with parental denial and dysfunction. Celia's distorted perception and denial. Hallie's mother, Celia, is a significant barrier. Her heavy drinking and inability to recognize Michael as an abuser and her misguided protection through unnecessary medical visits demonstrates a profound lack of judgment and a distorted perception of reality. This makes it incredibly difficult to get an accurate picture of the home environment and to address the true sources of Hallie's distress. Her fear of Ernesto also complicates any potential involvement from Ernesto's emotional unavailability. Hallie's biological father, Ernesto, is also an interfering factor due to his apparent lack of awareness or responsiveness to Hallie's distress. His impending remarriage and new child announcement have clearly impacted Hallie negatively, and his inability to recognize her obvious struggles means he is not a reliable source of information or support for understanding Hallie's true state. The abuse hidden by Michael. The fact that Michael's abuse is undetected by Celia is arguably the most critical barrier. Without acknowledgement of this primary stressor, any analysis of Hallie's well-being would be incomplete and misguided. This hidden element makes it incredibly challenging to understand the root cause of Hallie's symptoms. Let's say her environment instability and lack of support. Unsafe and unpredictable home environment is a big one. The constant neglect, Celia's substance abuse, and Hallie being left unsupervised create an unstable and unpredictable environment. This chaos makes it difficult to assess what a normal baseline for Hallie might be and constantly introduces new variables that impact her well-being. Inconsistent and stressful external relationships. The relationships with neighbors are characterized as inconsistent and stressful, meaning there's no reliable external support system or additional eyes on Hallie's situation from the community. This isolation limits potential sources of information about Hallie's daily life and further reinforces the family's insular dysfunction. Misdirection of resources, the medical system. While seemingly a form of protection, Celia's constant unnecessary medical visits are a barrier because they misdirect focus and resources away from the actual problem, like abuse, neglect, emotional distress, towards physical symptoms that are likely a manifestation of trauma. This medicalization of emotional distress can obscure the true underlying issues and prevent appropriate interventions. Hallie's withdrawal and sickness. Hallie's withdrawal and depression. The description notes Hallie's weight loss, withdrawal as direct manifestations of the profound stress and trauma she is enduring. This withdrawal itself can be a barrier to accurate assessment, as Hallie may be less likely to express her feelings or disclose the abuse due to fear, shame, or the profound impact of her depression. Constant sickness, which is a cry for help. While a sign of crisis, Hallie's constant sickness can also be an interfering factor in the analysis if the focus remains solely on the physical symptoms without recognizing them as a desperate cry for help stemming from the abuse and neglect. It requires careful differentiation between actual illness and somatic symptoms of trauma. In essence, the primary barriers revolve around the denial and dysfunction of Hallie's primary caregivers, the hidden nature of the abuse, and the overall lack of stable, supportive, and safe environment. Any analysis of Hallie's well-being must navigate these complex and deeply entrenched issues. So what are her treatment goals? Well, here are the treatment goals to address the parental denial and dysfunction in Hallie's situation, focusing on Celia's distorted perceptions, Ernesto's emotional unavailability, and the hidden abuse by Michael. So goal number one, ensure Hallie's safety and well-being. The objective would be to immediately assess and mitigate the risk of ongoing abuse and neglect. Possible interventions: initiate a Child Protective Services investigation to officially document and investigate allegations of abuse and neglect. This will provide a legal framework for intervention, like getting the paper trail started. Conduct a comprehensive safety assessment of Hallie's home environment, including interviews with Hallie in a child-friendly, trauma-informed manner, Celia, and other relevant individuals as permitted. Explore alternative safe living arrangements for Hallie if the home environment is deemed unsafe, such as placement with a trusted relative, if available and screened, or foster care. Provide immediate therapeutic support for Hallie to address withdrawal, depression, and sickness as somatic manifestations of trauma. This can include individual therapy on safety planning, emotional regulation, and processing trauma. Goal number two, facilitate parental acknowledgement and accountability. The objective here is to help Celia and Ernesto recognize the reality of the abuse and neglect and their roles in Hallie's distress. Interventions. For Celia, Hallie's mother, implement mandated substance abuse treatment for Celia to address her heavy drinking, which impairs her judgment and contributes to the unstable home environment. This should be a condition of any parental involvement. Provide psychoeducation to Celia on the dynamics of child abuse and neglect, the impact of trauma on children, and the legal consequences of her actions and inaction. This must be delivered clearly and directly without enabling her denial. Establish a clear expectation for Celia to cooperate with all investigations and interventions as a condition for retaining parental rights. Utilize motivational interviewing techniques to gently challenge Celia's distorted perceptions and denial while remaining firm on the need for Hallie's safety. For Ernesto, engage Ernesto in a direct conversation about Hallie's visible distress and the concerns regarding her well-being. Share objective observations about Hallie's symptoms and the impact of the family situation on her. Provide education to Ernesto on the signs of childhood distress and neglect and his parental responsibility to ensure Hallie's safety and well-being regardless of his impending remarriage. Assess Ernesto's willingness and capacity to provide a safe and supportive environment for Hallie. If he is unable or unwilling, his role may be limited to contributing to Hallie's financial and emotional support in a structured, supervised manner. For both parents, if legally permissible and deemed appropriate by Child Protective Services, facilitate supervised family meetings with the therapist to address the family dynamics and the impact of the hidden abuse. The primary focus here would be on the parents acknowledging the abuse and committing to change. Goal number three, establish a stable and supportive environment for Hallie. The objective here, create a consistent, safe, and emotionally nurturing environment for Hallie with reliable external support. Interventions: redirect medical sources, work with medical professionals to shift the focus from Hallie's physical sickness to the underlying psychological trauma. Educate medical providers on the signs of child abuse and neglect and the importance of trauma-informed approaches. Develop a clear and consistent routine for Hallie, whether in her current home, if deemed safe with significant changes, or an alternative placement to reduce environmental instability. Next, we would connect Hallie with reliable external support systems, such as school counselors, trusted teachers, or community mentors who can provide consistent, positive adult relationships and additional eyes on her well-being. There needs to be an advocate for Hallie's educational needs, ensuring that she has a stable school environment and access to any necessary academic or emotional support services. If the parents demonstrate sufficient progress, implement parenting skills training focused on positive discipline, emotional responsiveness, and creating a nurturing environment. This would only occur once safety is assured and abuse is acknowledged. These goals aim to systematically address the complex issues of parental denial and dysfunction to ultimately ensure Hallie's safety, facilitate her healing, and establish a more stable and supportive environment for her. Okay, I'm going to stop my sharing the screen. And I would like to thank everybody for hearing about Hallie. This child does need help as soon as humanly possible.